Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining me. As always, I'm Sharon's son, George, and we're here today for another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son. What I try and do is find authors, movie producers, celebrities, anyone in the Parkinson's community that's really trying to spread awareness. And I think that publishing is very important. As a PhD myself, I find it not easy, and that's a big task. And luckily, not only is this individual with us today live, I consider family and a friend, but he's also an author and also he's inspiring. And I actually got a chance, this is his book. We're going to talk today to Karl Sterling, one of my good friends. I call him Karl. To everyone else, it's Mr. Sterling. Just kidding.
No, it's just Carl.
And then we're going to talk about his book, which actually is pretty fairly new. I was really impressed that this timing was great for Parkinson's regeneration training. And what I really love, and I'll let Karl take it away, it's actually almost like stories, and interviews with individuals who are going through rough situations, which I didn't take his idea because we didn't know each other at the time, but I did the same area. But what I love about his is so unique that it's more of the science behind it, the motor skills and exercise, which I don't cover because I'm not in that field. So that's why I love doing these podcasts, and want to welcome you, Karl, because you bring something that I don't bring, and that I find that, we work together, our voices are so much stronger. So welcome, and really it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, George. It's a pleasure to be here. You're
Yeah.
doing great work, man. You're doing really great work in a lot of ways. And one in particular is the awareness factor, which you're out there. People know about you and the work you do. So I'm happy for you, and I'm grateful that you're doing that because the world needs a wake-up call, and you're one of the people giving it.
I appreciate it. And we have so much to talk about. We never have the time because I not only do I want to discuss what your book, your work, and your organization, but the big time TV radio station, which I know has really just happened. I always like doing these because we go through moments of history, like the
Yeah.
national plan to end Parkinson's disease is coming to the Senate in this
Oh, yeah.
2024. And then you just announced your radio show. So maybe you could tell us not just about your background, which I like to start with, but a little bit, what motivated you to want to write this book. It's not easy when I look at books now because I'm finishing mine. When I see like 500 pages, I'm like, I'm lucky if
Oh,
mine is 100 pages.
well, here's one of the things I can tell you for sure. I have a second book too
Yeah,
that's a lot smaller.
I have
And
a,
I think that if I was to rewrite the first one now, it would be smaller too, because I can say more in less words now that I know more.
this is
Thank
part.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you. But there is different content in that
yeah.
that I didn't know when I wrote the first book. I didn't know enough about it. Um, and how the book came about, it's a long story. Just a few years ago, like 7, 8 years ago, a doctor said to me in Denver, "You should write a book." I actually thought he was joking. And then a year later, I went back out there to teach. He said, "Well, did you start the book?" I said, "You were serious?" "Oh, yeah, you got it." Oh, so it took 3 years to write those 400 something or 500 pages because it was on and off. It's just really hard for me. Once I finally got focused, I got it done in about 4 months, 5 months, 3 years. I think it came out 3 years ago. It's funny, I actually don't remember. But anyways, and then the sales about it and the reception of it has been very good. Of course, I always wish I had done a better job because now I know more, so I have to revise it. I'm writing another book now called Brain Resilience. But I was thinking when I put it together, geez, I'm just a guy. I mean, I do movement specialists, rehab specialists, personal trainer, whatever. Let's get some stories. Let's get some relatability and let's get some credibility. So I recruited a number of doctors neurologists to contribute on various areas of expertise in that book. And then I have, I don't know, a dozen or so stories from people I've met in my travels around the world and teaching who live with Parkinson's, who are giving very inspiring stories as to how they're fighting back against it. And to me, that's really everything. And so there are experts who knew that I wasn't just some fly by night guy. I actually I'm not saying this because of my ego. I do know something, but I want to know more. I can never know too much. I want to make sure I do a better job. So whatever I do in here goes out the door with people into their lives and helps them with their activities of daily living. So hence second book comes along, now a third. But a lot of the foundational stuff remains permanent in its relevance and effectiveness. Some of the areas you and I discussed that we might discuss,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know. So uh whatever you want, however you want to go with this direction wise, I can
How
bob and
about,
weave, go anywhere.
no, I appreciate it, and that was great background. And again, so you're doing amazing things. Is there one story? I mean, I actually recognize some of the individuals in the second book because I've interviewed them, which is nice. So it's,
Yeah.
again, mine are more about their journey, not as much onto the science, but Mr. Hannington is one of them. I call,
Oh yeah, Kabugo, yeah.
and actually I've, interviewed Parkinson's Africa and how important it is to get awareness because I was shocked when I found out people there think it's witchcraft if you have Parkinson's, which is so false that that's what we're all out here doing is we need to change
Oh.
the thought. But maybe if you want to talk about in particular person you might have enjoyed to discuss their story.
Oh sure. Yeah, I'll talk about Angelus, who's in Monterrey, Mexico. But before I do,
Sure.
Kabugo and I were talking before he submitted a story for, I think it was the second book. I can't remember. But he had told me his story. Well, you know his story too, about his mother and how people thought it was witchcraft and that it was contagious. So like his family moved out, his father moved his family out. Well, these are the kind of things like I just heard a phrase yesterday, as a matter of fact, from a friend of mine. Education is the cornerstone of change and awareness. Like education, when we find out that Parkinson's is not contagious, well, you and I know this, and probably most of your viewers or listeners do too. The people in Kenya, people in Uganda don't know that necessarily, and they're slowly becoming aware of it. So just think of the impact it would have, like Kabugo Hannington's story of how dreadfully sad and heart and gut wrenching it was for his family to move out because they thought they were all going to catch Parkinson's. Yet he escapes at night, literally escapes, goes back and runs miles to see his mother and be with her. And she says, no, 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 you can't be with me. You're going to catch Parkinson's. Well, that's okay, mom. If I do, I'll die with you. It's okay. There was love there. Well, people, they'll walk around him in the streets in Uganda, Kenya, and other countries because they're like, oh, go across the street because there's a person with Parkinson's over there and you don't want to catch it. So it's what a horrible thing, right? I mean, I'm not judging. This is what they believe. So you, me, uh, we want to bring change. We want to bring awareness, and that's just a real. That's a huge turning point if somebody realizes it's not contagious.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that, and that it's not witchcraft. Witchcraft. Angelus is a lady I met on my first trip to Mexico, which is April of 6 years ago, 2007, 18, yeah. So I went down there, Dr. Ingrid Estrada Bellarmine, who wrote part of a chapter in my first book,
Mhm.
is a neurologist, a very wonderful human, very generous, humble. And she's in Monterrey. She's like the foremost neurologist in Monterrey, and one of the foremost prominent and well-known and great neurologists in Mexico. Mexico has a lot of great neurology in certain cities. I had met her at a conference, and she, a year or so later, invited me down to be a keynote speaker at a symposium. So I'm standing on stage, I'm talking to 90 people, a couple hundred people, 90-minute presentation, all dressed up in a suit and all, whatever, doesn't matter. But anyways, this lady out there, she's like got her arms crossed, and she's head back and frowning and very, very like, I found out afterwards what she was thinking is at like 42 years of old, she was 42 years of age or so at that time, diagnosed with Parkinson's when she was about 27, maybe 25. There are a lot of early onset in Mexico. That's a whole nother conversation on what they believe could be why, but there are a lot of reasons. So, anyways, uh, another person thinks they can tell me something and thinks they can, some American guy, a gringo, is going to come down here. The gringo wants to impress me. But as I was going through the presentation, her arms started to unfold and she started to smile. And when I got done, I had to go change my clothes and put on workout clothes. And I came back in and there were about 50, 55 people there ready to do the workout with me because that was scheduled right after. All right. So I'm the final speaker. Now there's a workout. I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do with them. I literally decided by asking the translator to ask them, what's the first problem you have and what do you encounter as your first challenge every day when you open your eyes and you're ready to get up out of bed? The first thing for a number of people was rolling over in bed. Imagine that being your first challenge. Well, this is not uncommon. Okay, so even in the aging population in general, it's not that uncommon. And then, to get seated upright, and then actually stand up and move. So, anyways, I decided right then, okay, we're going to do a workout, and the name of it is The Floor is Our Friend.
Mhm.
So, everyone on the floor, please. So, we had a lot of helpers around, the physical therapists and all that. They're helping people to get down safely. And basically, what we did, think about this, super, super simple. We learned through a modified system that I made from a guy I know who wrote the foreword for that book. Actually, Dr. Perry Nicholson wrote the foreword for the book. I learned this primal movement stuff from him years ago. He's a genius. Anyways, he taught me, and then I modified it for Parkinson's, how to get anybody to be able to roll over without assistance. And it pretty much always works almost every single time. Once we explain how to leverage the body to go from back to front, face down, and then face down to face up, front to back, both directions. It's actually really, really simple, except people a lot of times don't think of how to use the leg and the arm and the weight and this and that to leverage them to almost propel them to roll over.
Mhm.
So, anyways, this lady, Angeles, is up in the corner, and I'm looking, and I knew a little Spanish at the time. I know a lot more now. I go up there, eres okay, because she's crying. And her husband's there, and her daughter's there, beautiful little daughter, Sophie. And, oh, sí, sí, señora, estoy todo bien. She's okay. Okay, good, good. You need help? No, 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 no. It's super bien. So, anyways, I find out later, this is the first time she'd rolled over without assistance in 5 years. 5 years. So, what that did for me is it made me realize a couple things. First of all, a simple thing can be life changing. Regaining a simple skill can be life changing and transformative. But even, well, within that or on top of that is another factor. She was like really standoffish in the audience, thinking, I am defeated. Parkinson's has got me. She had chosen to be because she believed she should be bedridden and not walk much. And she didn't walk that great, but she could. At least she moved enough to be able to walk a little bit with help. Well, now she goes from feeling defeated and hopeless, one roll over and back, and then over and over again, to completely optimistic and unstoppable. And I've seen her since, not long ago. The woman is on fire. She's back. She went back to work within months. She actually started running. She used to be a marathon runner. She started running on the second trip I went down there 2 months later. We went mountain climbing together, Mount Topo Chico, her husband, her daughter, and her and me. We climbed to the top of this huge mountain and she kicked our butts
Mhm.
because she beat all of us to the top. There's no way you could keep up with her. So that's one of my favorite stories because it was the first time I'd ever seen anyone go from completely standoffish, depressed, no hope to unstoppable, and she's still that way. So I love that story, and it just goes to show that a little bit can go a long ways. A little bit of something maybe can change a life, and then look at the ripple effect: her husband, her daughter, her family, her friends. all those who are trying to help and take care of her, they're happy. They get a break. And I mean, what a great story. I love it.
I appreciate you sharing with everyone. And also one reason I actually wanted to meet with you over like a few months we had talked was because a lot of the machines that you use and integrate with your patients and individuals I always found were top of the edge technology and so unique that I don't see it a lot. I might follow a lot of people and I do a lot of research. Like you said, when you write a book, you need to keep learning. We're all continual learners, but I always see you with some of the most interesting. I
Uh,
mean, I have a lot of issues. I feel people say I'm RoboCop, even though I'm not. But
uh,
and while you answer that, if you could tell us a little bit more about what regeneration training means to you, also, so everybody who doesn't understand might be aware.
okay.
Okay.
Well, that was a lot of thought that went into the name of that Parkinson's regeneration training, and my son really gets credit for coming up with it. His name is Nick. He's now I get to brag for a minute. He's an MD. He's also a researcher. He's a developer of artificial intelligence medical equipment for emergency room diagnosis and treatment. He's also a PhD. His PhD had to do with neurodegeneration of the brain as we age. He studied a lot of people with a lot of movement disorders, especially Parkinson's. But we talked about what are we doing if we're retraining the brain? Well, we just came up with it was really his word, regeneration. You're regenerating quality of life, a better quality of life. You're regenerating abilities. Uh, so therefore, if we're training people to move better, multitask better, reduce falls, we're regenerating training. So Parkinson's regeneration trainings, that just became the name.
I like it. It's different too. It's not, it's unique. So, we have a lot of things out there that are, dance and this and exercise, but nothing that unique. But what about, must be costly, some of these machines. I know when we met, you said you were getting this big monster one and you were all excited. And what does that do for someone with Parkinson's, some of the machines?
I don't remember which one.
If you have so many of them, you have a lot. I guess on the website, I see a lot of different types of, kind of therapy machines. I don't know. I'll have to send you it out to just maybe, you would, I guess there are a lot of things out there to help. And my mother had the one that you just go like this. At least it was not a lot,
Yeah.
but at least it got her moving. But I find that there's so much better research today than there was 15 years ago with types of motor skills and now we know a lot more how dancing, boxing, and the areas you're doing can slow the progression of disease. So, those are some of the things I noted when we first met. But if you saw the post that it was on your website, you'd be like, wow, this thing's pretty cool. So, and it's from
Well,
Europe.
if if you it's okay to mention my site
Oh,
because
please. Yeah, we're here
so
for
if you
today.
if
Yeah, the purpose is really to learn about you and the book
oh
and I do want to
thank
get
you.
to the next area after that is,
Sure, sure. Well,
this,
if you go to karlsterling.com, that's Carl with a K, so KarlSterling.com, you'll probably see most of the stuff we have here. I mean, we have everything from the biodensity, which helps to reverse osteoporosis. And if you think about it, think about this. People go through their lifetime, and especially if they're less active for any reason at all, Parkinson's included, and they lose muscle mass, and muscle mass is tied to bone density, metabolism, and quality of life and movement. Well, bone bones lose density, they get more brittle. Therefore, if you're at a higher fall risk, and you do fall, you're more likely to break a bone. Well, our machine, through this max loading, max osteogenic uh, isometric, something like that loading, I can't seem to think of it
I have
right
like
now.
20
You're
degrees.
doing an isometric contraction in a certain position where you are strongest. You're going to be like pushing 6, 7 times as much weight on a leg press, bench press than on a traditional bench or leg press. But that force loading loads the muscles and it's produced by you. You do it because the machine's not moving anywhere. You're pushing against it and it's measuring. That's loading up the cells, the lengthening the telomeres, creating mitochondria, going through the tendons, through the cartilage, right into the bones and triggering trabecular soft tissue bone growth. So, it takes time Could take 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a year before we see anything, but it makes you stronger. It improves balance because it gets type 2 muscle fibers very effectively. Those are the first to go as we age, and those are the ones highly associated with balance, besides sprinting and 100-yard dash and all that. So foundational strength is very, very important for all humans as we get older, but with Parkinson's, especially if they have dyskinesia or extreme excessive tremors, they're burning more calories because they're moving all the time. And we're worried about malnutrition and muscle mass loss. So, I mean, I could go on and on about
Yeah.
that. We have all kinds of machines that I'll just do half a more minute. Like the
Sure.
Reaxing board is a little over 4 feet by 8 feet in dimensions. It's a randomized movement of the board just moving like a giant wobble board, 14 different levels of intensity where you can go really high, really low, or in the middle, anywhere. And it's basically neuroreactively challenging you because any floor movement you would do or exercise, you can take it up to the board, sit to stand, walk sideways over some hurdles, crunches, bird dogs, plank, push-ups, you name it. And we do a lot more on it too, but that's moving underneath you like you're on a ship trying to stay balanced. So a very turbulent ship, right?
Yeah.
And all kinds of other stuff too. If you go to my website, you'll see a bunch of things there.
Feel like I need to go work out after we're done today. You mentioned a few, but I wanted to touch on some of the most important areas too, because usually we run out of time. We have so much to talk about, but things like the extreme importance of maintaining sufficient muscle mass, the slowing the progression we already kind of touched on, but maybe you can also talk about neuroplasticity and retraining. Like I said, I have a law degree. I'm a PhD in police, but the only degree I didn't do is the MD, which I did. But some of those words, when we talk about them, it's like,
Oh, well, there's some big words, but if you just make it really simple, um, let's touch on the muscle mass just for one more brief moment. In fact, that's what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow on the radio show for the first episode, because this is for anybody. So anybody watching or listening, just think of, do you know anyone who has trouble getting up out of a chair? We see people every day here who have trouble, or maybe they can't. Well, how did they get that way? Do all of them have Parkinson's? Have they had a stroke? Well, no. Some people just don't move enough. Maybe they retire at 65, and by the time they're 80 or 85, their diminished movement, diminished exercise, diminished everything over those decade and a half or two puts them in a position now where they haven't done enough to maintain enough muscle mass to get up out of a chair anymore. That's called probably functional problems with sarcopenia, right? Where muscle's not sufficient for what you need to do what you do. Well, then you got all kinds of problems. So it's so important to have adequate muscle mass. And it's so good for metabolism and fighting back against any possible onset of disease of any kind, because you get blood and oxygen going through your body and your brain. So it's like preserving the brain by doing exercise, because we could segue to the next thing, slowing disease progression. I just did a whole talk on it a couple hours ago. The bottom line is just walking is so good for your brain, because not only is it good for your body and you're using muscles but you're elevating your heart rate. So when you elevate your heart rate for long enough, it's got to be at least 20 minutes probably, but more is better, 25, 30, 45 an hour. You keep walking at whatever a brisk pace you can do that's safe so you don't put yourself in jeopardy of falling, but get the heart rate elevated. The brain will create a growth hormone called brain-derived neurotrophic factor that has shown to be in countless studies and countless publications. Data shows that that is like miracle growth for the brain, because it's created in the brain via extra blood and oxygen pumping through elevated heart rate. It circulates, it attaches itself to brain cells, It helps to preserve cellular structure, cellular longevity, cellular functionality, slow the death of dying brain cells, give birth to new brain cells in just a couple areas of the brain, but unfortunately not in the substantia nigra and Parkinson's, but the hippocampus and Alzheimer's, that part of the brain can birth new brain cells. Most parts of the brain can't. So there's another conversation to be had about what to do to manage that. There are people with Alzheimer's who, one study I can think of, 6 months, 5 days a week, cardio, 30 minutes a day, who have completely reversed their Alzheimer's diagnosis, or they're showing less Alzheimer's symptoms in the imaging and in their, their symptoms. So there's a lot of power to walking when it comes to preserving the brain through growth hormones that preserve cellular structure, longevity, and prevent the dying of brain cells. It might not prevent it forever, but it'll slow down the death. Plus, one other caveat here that's really good. BDNF helps the uptake of medications to get in the system faster and last longer. So you take your levodopa, go for a walk, probably have a longer on period. Not everyone has on and off. Not everyone needs levodopa, or Cinemet or whatever. But BDNF created by elevated heart rate. So go for a walk, exercise after you take your med. You're probably gonna have a better, higher functioning on period.
That's just some important topics, and I always wanted to have a whole conversation like this, focusing more on, fitness and also a lot of the areas to slow down the disease, because a lot of the individuals don't have the qualifications you do. So I appreciate that. One last area before we kind of wrap up. What are you looking to, like, what's coming? I know the big time is the radio show, but do you have anything that you can share that's not top secret that's coming next few months? And then I appreciate that.
Oh, let me think.
And while you're thinking, I'm gonna plug
Well,
again to this Carl's book again.
thank
Please.
you. Yeah, if you go to karlsterling.com, you can find a link to the books. They're only sold through Amazon. I don't sell them direct.
I'd like to have a whole podcast on self-pub. We'll have to have another like about publishing versus self-pub after my book, because I'm just it's a whole different world of publishing. It's a really interesting topic.
It is. I'd like to find a publisher for the next one, but I have to tell you,
They take a lot longer.
whether anyone likes Amazon or not, no matter what they think, it's easy to publish.
Yeah, I'm in
Let's
that
see.
phase now, deciding what to do, because my big thing is I want I want it out there already. I don't want to just wait another, and then when you go with the publisher, I hear might wait a year, and I don't know if I can do that.
Oh, if you have your forms right, meaning PDF,
All
the
right.
right dimensions, and you got your cover done, and the spine is the right thickness, and the AI on the Amazon end of it helps you with everything. It could be out in a few days.
Right.
It could be available. So it's also available on Amazon. Just go there and search it. And right now the price is really, really, it's the lowest I can possibly offer. The price is down so low that Amazon won't let me bring it down anymore because I don't make any money off it. I don't
Right.
care. I just want people to buy it. So
Yeah.
like, so things that are coming. Well, I mean, we're looking at the third book called Brain Resilience. I'm working on it. I actually worked on it last night for a while. It's hard. Once I get into a role, I think this week coming up, because my situation is going to be different with my time this week. I
Right.
might actually get some done, but I might not either. But anyways, Brain Resilience would be out, I'm sure, by the fall. That just really has to do with the brain and the phases it tends to go through as we age and how to make it not age as quickly.
Mm.
Because there are a lot of things we can do. And I'll tell you right now, the number one thing is get moving.
Yeah.
It's
No.
like the best thing ever. And keep your body fat in check. Keep your body composition in check. One thing we're trying to get here, it's going to be work, but we will somehow, is an echo light scanner which is it takes the place of a DEXA scanner for scanning bone density, and it's more accurate than a DEXA scan, and it doesn't emit any radiation, and it doesn't cost much for the testing for the individual. The machine costs a lot, but it's cheaper than a DEXA scanner, although it's still a lot of money. But still, it does more than DEXA scan. We know that there is people with diminished muscle mass often have diminished cognition. It just goes with the territory. You're not moving as much. Sarcopenia. Well, your brain can atrophy too. Well, they probably have brittle bones too. Okay, well, we don't want that. So we'd love to be able to measure body composition through this, fragility score, fall predictor risk factor, and really help people to, when you have, that people who morbidly obese and type 2 diabetes are 6 times, if I remember the research right, I'm almost positive, I remember numbers well, they're 6 times more likely to get Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And people with Parkinson's are more likely to get dementia. I mean, it just goes with the territory. It's just the way it is. So you may not be able to control if you get Parkinson's or not. It might be a genetic mutation due to exposure. It might just be a genetic mutation, period, and you get it, and that's it. But knowing if, like for Alzheimer's, if you can get tested and find out, do you have a copy or 2 or none of the APOE4 gene, the less the better. But if you have 2 copies, it doesn't mean you're going to get Alzheimer's, but if you take the action steps, body composition in control, be moving, use your brain, move your body every day, eat well, not too much, and not bad stuff all the time, eat healthy. All of it is like, it should be a no-brainer, but I get stuck. I'm lazy too. I don't really ever want to do anything like work out, but I do because I don't want to be big again. I used to be really obese. I can't do that again. But I don't want to, here's how I look at it. I can pretty much wrap up by saying this. I don't want anyone to feel shamed or guilted in any way, shape, or form by what I say. But I was looking at myself years ago saying, at this pace and in this lifestyle, I am not going to last a long, long time. Whose burden will I be? Because there's no doubt I would have been a burden. Now, I hope I never am. But you, I don't mean you, George. You're fit, you're healthy, and you know a lot, and you do a lot. But others who maybe haven't thought of this, think about this. And I'm being totally serious. Whose burden do you want to be? You don't want to be anybody's burden. Do you? No. How much health span can you have within your lifespan? If you live to be 95, you're going to have 94.5 good years and maybe 6 months where you're not healthy, or 1 month where you're not healthy. You're going to live long and die quick. I mean, like the doctor upstairs says, I hope you die fast, just not soon. I mean, seriously, and I say again, my dad, I loved him dearly. He had a health span of 73 years, a lifespan of 84. Well, that's 11 years of not health span, unhealthy span, diminished health span, about 5 years of, decline. And then a thing happened, long story, went to the hospital, went to rehab, bedridden for the last 6. May you rest in peace. And I love you, Dad. But I didn't know his stuff back then. I would have helped him. But, I mean, he ended up being a burden. He didn't mean to be that. And nobody here probably intends to be one, but what are the likelihood you might be, and do you want to be, and what can you do about it now? So take action.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I'm probably burdened right now with my wife because I'm young, but always having something.
I don't think so.
Actually, just to again touch back on what you said, my mother unfortunately had late onset dementia. So on top of to me, that was even more frightening because the hallucinations and delusions were something out of almost a horror movie. Also, my dream is and goal is not to have her fall because I know if that happened, it would have been over even worse. But so we had to put video cameras in. We had to hire some caretakers just because when I wasn't there. And luckily, that didn't happen. But that was a big fear I had that, if she fell, she already had enough issues. She also had dystonia, fibromyalgia. But it's, the whole thing is tough. But that's why I loved having you today and to talk to you because we also not only lived through our books, mine's a memoir kind of. I kept, and again, we'll do that another time, but I kept a journal the last year of her life and never shared it about how I was going through feeling and what she was going through, and that'll be in the book. So it's not going to be easy, but it is there's a good shine of a light at the end of the tunnel, just like you're doing with your work and all those individuals you interviewed and share their journeys. It also is incredible because I always say it in everybody I meet, the only journey that breaks my heart is the one that I don't know about. So those are, now
Yeah.
I'm going to learn a lot about the ones, from your book. And if they ever
Yeah.
want to share their journey with me too, keep in touch. But so I just wanted to again, thank you for all that knowledge today. Like I said, I have to go work out and think about all this.
Ah,
I just ate really bad too. I think I had some raisin.
don't worry. I mean, hey, we all do it.
Oh, it's hard when you have one ankle.
I love my potato chips and my Doritos. I'm gonna admit it,
Yeah,
but I try not to eat that many of them. I'm looking forward to seeing your book too. I
thank
can't wait to read it because I know it's very personal too because of what you went through, and I think that in and of itself is going to be a real help to a lot of people out there. So, because some people think they're alone in this,
yeah.
caregivers think they're alone. No, they're not. They may not know of other people, but they're out there, man. These people are out there, and these communities help to bring people together to help each other. And you're doing that, so I appreciate that, and appreciate you
Mm.
having me here a whole lot, George. Thank you.
No, again, we're family in this fight together. Until we have a cure, I won't rest. And I do feel that we need to have a lot more conversations. One, even just interesting, would be publishing a book. So when I'm done, maybe we could just get back even a half-hour talk because it's not an easy task. I sit up every night wondering because I have an editor, like, when are we going to get this out? It's like, and then I
Mhm.
even just before our talk today, I just wrote another, like, we're done, and I'm keep thinking more things like you said to add. That's why, again, I recommend not only the big book, but now the follow-up, because I can see how that's going to happen to me. Because you publish, you get out, and then you realize, oh, wait a minute. So I'm actually just decided to put a little bit, kind of like the aftermath. So after my mother passed, and you're stuck with horrible things like you have to give away her things and the memories and sell the house, the car, and it was just, I'm going to finish it right after, but that wasn't initially supposed to be in, but it's like, you just keep thinking of more things. But you definitely have taught me so much today and in our time together. And I know I'm going to learn a lot more from you. So thank you again, Carl, for being here and for being my friend too.
No problem, man.
But
Hopefully I meet you when I'm in Florida one of these
oh yeah,
days.
that would be great. You're always welcome here. I don't get out of the house,
Thank you.
but I wanted to thank everyone listening. Please share this. Please support Carl and his book and the radio show and his social media, and you can find all of that. I'm following. But again, thank you again for joining us for another episode of Q&A with Sharon and George. And I always end everything. You might know. I think I didn't end it with your podcast, but we love you, we support you, we care about you, and you're never alone. We'll both advocate for you, and together our voices are so much stronger. And I always say we're just getting started, even though I'm really not. I love saying it's more motivation. So,
It's true though. Like every day is a new beginning. It's like, oh my God, there's so much more to know.
trying to get the sound effects. Can you hear this?
Oh
I'm
yeah, yeah, I heard that. That's a good one.
trying to get more sound effects. I bought a board. I'm like, now I'm in the podcast role. I never thought of it. I saw this board you can get for sound effects. I'm like, let's go back to just playing it on my cell phone. Forget
It's a
it.
riot. Yeah.
Thank you again and again. And thanks everyone for listening. Just sending my love and our support. And this is just one of many, I hope, talks in our great relationship too. So thank you again.
Thank you.